everybody, and welcome to another edition of Another Fine Mess. I'm Roger Gray, along with my colleague Mike Vance. How are you, sir?
Yep,
Hey,
I'm
man.
doing well. Doing
Good.
well.
I'm glad. You're doing better than they are in Iran right now. Why don't we start with that? Because, let's see, we're recording this on Wednesday at around 11 o'clock Central. Who knows what the policy is today? It changes daily. Monday, the president said that we would escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz for a price,
Yeah.
like 20% of the value of your cargo. And then
Yeah.
somebody bothered to tell him that's illegal, basically, in international waters or territorial waters.
Well, I love the fact that the Iranians issued a statement that said, because they had, of course, been trying to charge $1 million a ship or something like that.
Right.
But they said, congratulations to Trump for figuring out that that is a good idea to charge people to go through the strait, although his price is way too high and we will be much more fair.
Well, and that policy changed on Tuesday. It
Yeah.
is Taco Tuesday at the Casa Trump Restaurante. So he's now flipped, and he's claiming he traded it for some vague investments from some vague countries at a vague time to be named later. Uh, so we're bombing the crap out of them again. What are your thoughts on all this?
Well, it's really the opposite of Groundhog Day because it's something different every time. When he wakes up and decides, there was a quote, "No negotiations," kind of like the
Yeah.
soup Nazi from Seinfeld. No negotiations for you. No negotiations for you.
Yeah.
That was an actual quote that he had. I've decided I don't like negotiations now. They have no clue what they're doing. I mean, we've talked about this every week. If there's a Groundhog Day, it's you and I having to say the same stuff that these people are complete morons who fired all of the advisors that knew anything about what was going to happen. Um, he likes to be a bully on international stage, and he found somebody that's not going to put up with that. And in no way are you and I taking up for that horrible regime in Iran, but
Yeah.
he has made them stronger through his actions.
And he has
And
made them look. He's made them look like victims on the international stage. They
yeah,
are. Before all this happened, they were anything but that. They're bad actors. Everybody knows it. They fund other bad actors. But if the object was their nuclear ambitions, that was held in check by the time he came into office the first time,
yeah,
as we've discussed endlessly. And he decided that's a bad idea. I could do it better, but he hasn't.
yeah. And keep in mind, the strait was wide open. That wasn't even an issue when he started the war. The strait was not even on the list of issues that were, just kind of stuff he tossed onto the water for
Yeah,
why he
yeah.
decided to do this at this point. Well, it was open, and now it's not.
And is not going to be for a while. We're paying the price, all of us. Gasoline is spiking back up. Just a programming note. When we're done here and I get this thing edited, I'm going to set up an interview with a good friend of mine, Patrick DeHaan at Gas Buddy. He is their petroleum analyst. He puts out a weekly newsletter, and we're gonna do a short show, a short version. Just where are we going? What's happening to prices? Prices at the pump have spiked back up. Obviously, the price of oil has gone up 15-20%, I think, in the last few days. So here we go again. It's this roller coaster, and the average American consumer is paying the price. And we'll pay the price when we have to replace all this equipment.
Yeah. The economies around the world are all affected. It's not just us. And some of them more than others.
Yeah.
Economies like some sort of stability. And that's what markets like. And they're not getting it. They're getting nothing but unpredictability and mindless change.
And look, I like to think of myself as somebody who cares a lot about the environment, but the fact of the matter is this economy runs on diesel. Everything we buy is shipped by trucks and trains. They run on diesel, and that's part of why you're seeing, in the aisles at Kroger, the price is going up so much. Farmers depend on diesel for their equipment. It's a snowball effect that's hitting everybody right now, and all we get is, well, but they won't have a nuke. Well, maybe. We'll
Yeah,
see.
exactly, maybe. And there are people that are out there, the handful that are still defending this action in the first place, are all going, well, it was time. It was time to go in and end this once and for all. We are farther away from ending that regime once and for all than we have been in 60 years. So I mean, there's nothing good about him starting this war, and there is certainly nothing good about the way he's prosecuting it.
And the Ayatollah that he killed has been replaced by an Ayatollah who is even more radical. So here we go. We shall see. By the way, the president is going to be on the air on Thursday, giving a speech with some revelatory evidence about an election 6 years ago now.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind that there have been close to 100 lawsuits over that election. All of them had no evidence. Most all of them, I can't think of any that weren't, were tossed out of court. There were lawyers disbarred over this ongoing effort. It's more distraction. It's more grievances that he carries with him. He has always been thin-skinned, and again, this goes back to way before he was president the first time. He has had the same character flaws his entire life, which has been held in public.
And when in doubt, sue somebody. We're having reporters from the New York Times, government DOJ lawyers or agents are showing up at their doorsteps with subpoenas. He cannot handle. Look, you and I and everybody listening to this, all 10 people, have all had to face disappointment here and there. We've lost gigs. We've not gotten promotions. We've not gotten raises. Things happen. Life happens. He cannot accept that. He cannot accept. Every politician knows you win some, you lose some. It's better if you win, but you don't spend the rest of your life crying about it and whining that you were cheated. He wasn't cheated. It was by all accounts his own Bill Barr, his own hand-picked attorney general, told him it's over. It was a fair election. We lost.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah, and meanwhile, it's the whole end game is to make voting very difficult for millions of Americans. We do not have a problem with fraud in elections in this country, period. The end. We do not have a problem with fraud in elections in this country. And
it is a microscopic problem. I mean, yeah, people try to cheat.
it's not a
but
problem.
very
It is not a
few.
problem. It is not a problem. We are talking 1 in a million voters. It is not a problem, period.
And apparently, now again, we're recording this the day before his speech, and if I'm wrong, I'll go back and edit this out, I guess. But reportedly, he is going to center a lot of his complaints on Georgia. You know, they raided the Georgia election office and confiscated a bunch of files. He is going to claim that Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff's elections as 2 Democratic senators should be voided, that they were not properly elected. Georgia has examined this over, I forget how many times, 6, 7 times, canvases of the election.
Republicans
Yes.
in Georgia. Yes, not
Indeed.
Democrats in Georgia. Republicans in Georgia have examined this. He is
And
on
said-
tape. He is on
Yeah.
tape in Georgia calling up and saying, where are the 11,000 votes, 11,000, whatever the number is.
Yeah.
Where are those
Said,
votes?
"Find
that
me."
was
Find me
Georgia.
find me those votes. Yeah, more to the point. Yeah. While we're in the South, let's head to South Carolina. We lost a familiar face in the Senate this week. Lindsey Graham passed away. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, Lindsey Graham, it's interesting because the guy allegedly was very close friends with John McCain. There were
Yeah.
a couple of Democratic senators, Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren, that are certainly not, in Elizabeth's case, certainly not a centrist, came out and talked about what a good guy he was. And Elizabeth, I think it was her, and or maybe it was Amy, one of them said, I want to remember the guy that he used to be, not the guy that he turned into.
Well, Joe Biden fondly remembered their time together in the Senate before Biden was vice president. Said they got along well and worked on several issues together.
Yeah, people talked about that he was a good guy on a personal level. You and I have spoken about John Cornyn, and you have a little bit more positive opinion of Cornyn at this point. I think he has negated everything decent that he ever did. But in reality, Lindsey Graham is the poster child for having caved in to become an ass kisser for this administration. The interesting part to me is what's going to happen, and again, to tie it back to Cornyn and some other people that have been voted out in primaries, and then you lose all that power and seniority in the Senate, and that's a body that runs on that power and seniority. Lindsey Graham was a very powerful senator, and Lindsey Graham was also the main guy backing sanctions for the Russians, which is something that Trump opposes. So where does that go? There are some big issues that are coming up where Graham came down. He was, on the other hand, very much pushing that $1 trillion defense budget,
Yep.
which the Democrats have temporarily stopped. So what happens there?
Yeah, it's going to, and they need it. I will say that they need money, and they need money because the president has involved us in a pointless conflict, a conflict that didn't have to happen, a conflict for which he has no end game. He has no plan. He had no plan getting into it, and he doesn't know how to get out of it other than bomb the crap out of people, as I mentioned earlier. And that has depleted supplies. They deny that, but every outside analyst and analytic organization looking at our stockpiles and the cost of the weaponry we make have said this is going to cost a ton of money to replace this stuff. And we may not be as ready as we want to be if something happens in the Pacific, in Taiwan. Yep. Or if there's Russian aggression against Poland, there are rumors about that. Although why Putin would want to take that on, I don't know. Polish military is actually pretty good. So this is going to be expensive either way, and we did it to ourselves.
Well, but why? You used the word replace. Why replace the same Cold War era weapons? Why not get smarter? The Defense Department notoriously wastes money. There have been studies for the last 100 years, going back to when it was the War Department, about the amount of money that they waste. This is tossed out to these giant defense contractors. $1 trillion is ridiculous. We have needs here that we need to spend domestically. We don't need to be throwing $1 trillion. We need to tell them to spend their money more wisely.
Well, and let me just say that there's a wonderful book I would recommend, and oh gosh, I am trying to think of the author's name. It's on the shelf right behind me, called National Defense, and it came out during the Reagan era. And the premise of the book is the Pentagon continually equips itself for the last war, which is why Jimmy Carter, for example, a Naval Academy graduate, a veteran. Worked in submarines. He knew, for example, that cruise missiles were in the pipeline heading our way. that stealth was in the pipeline heading our way. So he canceled things like the B 1 bomber. Why spend the money when you're probably not going to fly over Moscow and drop a dumb bomb? We're going to be smarter than that. And that was the Cold War, obviously, but we built it anyway. That's part of the problem. Are tanks the way to go now? I think the Ukrainians have shown that tanks are just really not the answer. And frankly, we knew that when we built the first. I'm trying to think. I can't recall the name of our tank right now. Anyway, the main
Abrams.
battle tank. The Abrams. Thank you very much, Creighton Abrams. It was named for him. Anyway, that kind of war is outside of the Middle East, perhaps, is not going to happen again. The Russians are not going to come through the Fulda Gap and into Western Europe that way. And the Ukrainians have shown what happens when that happens. So, yeah, you're right. We need to get smart. And by the way, it would be nice if when we do get smart and we hand out contracts, a big chunk of that doesn't go to the two Trump sons. That would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm adamant on that. We do not need to spend $1 trillion. Yes, we need to resupply, but we don't need to resupply with the same overpriced stuff that we have been using for the past several decades.
Yeah. And by the way, with the death of Lindsey Graham, his sister has, and you will notice we have not gone the cheap route in terms of Lindsey Graham, as to why he was easily blackmailable. But his sister has taken over the balance of his term. There's an election coming up in the fall. Nancy Mace has said she's interested in that. A woman who has proven herself to be more than unstable. And when she ran for governor recently, she came in 5th in South Carolina, so they're on to her. She may throw her hat into the ring. I know this isn't worth a long discussion, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have no thoughts on that. I mean, she's a frightening piece of work. My thoughts on who might replace him. Another thing that I failed to mention, he was also one of the leading voices in the Senate against isolationism. And the MAGA crowd is very much pro-isolationism. So I think there's a big danger that whoever replaces him changes that policy, and which is a ridiculous policy. And we have seen repeatedly throughout history why it's a ridiculous policy. It's funny, the names that are coming up, a lot of them are sitting Congress members. And there's a lot of people on the Republican side.
What will that do to the math? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That are going, wait a minute. You know, we need every one of those people right now. I don't know South Carolina law. Obviously, the governor reappointed Graham's sister within a matter of days. So maybe he could do that if a congressman leaves to switch over. Who knows? But you know, we'll see. There's a lot of parts that go into it, and I'm sure South Carolina is pretty damn heavily Republican. I'm sure it will be an uphill battle for any Democrat, but still.
Let's move on to ICE. We had the ICE killing earlier last week in Houston. The gentleman taking his work crew to a construction site. A man who was apparently not the target of this particular operation, but was shot anyway. Who, by all accounts, did not threaten ICE officers. Was being chased by unmarked vehicles. We talked a lot about this last week, and obviously you've got a lot of trigger happy guys out there. Now we've had another one in Maine. This was a young man. Both of these were family men. Both of them hardworking. This young man in Maine, he was like 28, something like that. Wife, kid, work permit in the country legally, and had a temporary Social Security card, which is given when you get your permit to work in the country. I don't know if that is officially a green card, but it is certainly a work permit. So he was here legally. He was not the guy they were actually after. They made a mistake there, and they shot him anyway.
Shot him in
And go ahead.
shot him in front of his wife and kids, I might add.
Yeah. Yeah.
So before we even get to this, I want to mention that I mistakenly said Janet Good. It was Renee Good
Oh, yeah.
that was killed. So I wanted to correct that. That was from last week. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
there are 22 people that ICE have shot since January of 2025 when this buffoon came back into office. And, sorry, about to sneeze. So 22 people have been shot
you
by
hate that?
ICE. Yeah, I do, and it's not coming. 22 people shot, 6 of them killed, 3 of those that were killed, American citizens, and all of them, with I think maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, were killed while in their cars. So they are shooting into moving vehicles, claiming the vehicles were trying to ram them. This is not anything new. These people are undertrained. They are thugs. This is everything wrong with law enforcement, where you get that post 9/11 more militarized law enforcement, that feeling that, we're invincible, we can go out, we're going to shoot first and ask questions later. The idea that they're wearing masks is just reprehensible. The video in Houston showed that not only were they unmarked vehicles, they did not even have flashing lights chasing this white work van. So these are just 2 black SUVs chasing. One of them apparently rammed into the white work van that belonged to Lorenzo Salgado, and there's no excuse. They are murdering people. They are murdering people on American streets, and even though Mark Wayne, whatever the hell his name
Yeah.
is, even though he has said we need to stop most of these vehicle stops temporarily, Hiroshito in the White House said, no, we don't need to do that. We need to keep stopping these vehicles.
Yeah, Homan had issued or Mullen, I guess through Homan,
Yeah.
had said let's hold off on the traffic stops for a while. The young man who was shot in Maine, the guy who did it was a new recruit, fairly new recruit. They have shortened the training cycle for these guys to get more of them out on the street, and we are seeing some of the results. They're simply undertrained and obviously trigger happy. Most cops will tell you, there are strict rules about shooting at a moving vehicle. You don't do it just because they're trying to get away. Yeah, it's not like the movies. You don't, it's not like Chinatown. You're not shooting at Faye Dunaway driving away. You don't do that unless you're prepared to lose your badge and maybe go to jail. You only do it if they're threatening you or somebody else. Otherwise, call it in and have a helicopter track them until you can run them down, or chase them. But either way, this is not how real cops do it.
Yeah.
And one of the suggestions is they should get more involved if they think there's going to be a traffic incident, more involved with real local cops, assuming the city is cooperating with them. Get a real local cop to handle that, and then you can question. Being in the country illegally is a misdemeanor. It
Yes.
is not a felony. It is certainly not a death sentence. It is a misdemeanor, people. So this is literally and figuratively overkill. That is way beyond the pale.
Back in the days when I was performing, I had several really good friends who were Houston police officers. And I learned a little bit about the training requirements and the requirements to get accepted into the academy. Houston, at the time, had pretty rigorous testing before you get into the academy, including psychological testing.
Yeah.
But there was a guy that used to hang out at an ice house that we went to that desperately wanted to be a Houston cop. He was young, and he liked the idea of having power over other people. I mean, that's what it came down to. HPD, he applied twice, and both times they looked at him and they said, no, you did not pass the psych eval. You are not getting into the HPD Academy. Come to find out, and I heard this from the HPD guys, that there are steps down. And it's not only going to a small county, but going to like a constable's office or going to a step down where they don't care about that kind of stuff. The training is lesser than what you get at the big city police departments.
Yeah.
And that's what they are doing with these ICE people. They are lowering the requirements to get in. They are lowering the amount of training, and you get what you expect to get. You get a bunch of thugs out there that are trigger happy, don't know what they're doing, and it's murder.
These are not FBI agents. These are not going through FBI training at Quantico.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not how it works. Yeah, with ICE, they need to just go back to patrolling the border. Quite frankly, but and by the way, along with this, if I watch the Speaker of the House face reporters, and when asked about a controversial and right there in 6-point type in the headlines issue, if I hear him say, gosh, I'm not familiar with that, I'll have to get more information, I'm gonna throw something at the TV. It is nuts. It is his standard evasion. You are the Speaker of the House. You passed the budget for these people. You ought to know what's going on, and you ought to damn well answer questions about it. He is the most. Gosh, I had better hopes for him, frankly, after what's his name, but he may be the most ineffective speaker in years.
Well, that's a pretty low bar. So
Yeah.
let's say that. I mean, and this is a party that can't even tell you for sure if one of their former Senate leaders is alive or dead in Kentucky.
Yeah.
The picture that they post was proven to be from 3 years ago. When they look and the wrinkles on the shirt are exactly the same, that they have photoshopped into a different. I mean, come on, the idiocy over there is rather legion right now, Roger. So single him out if you want to, but he ain't alone.
Yeah. So, okay, let's move on. Speaking of the only Congress we have, we're kind of stuck with it for now. You want to talk a bit about the housing bill? It finally became law. The president refused to sign it. He didn't like it. He wanted him to pass the SAVE Act first. But it went into effect finally. One of the very few things I can recall in recent years that was reasonably bipartisan.
Yeah, it was very bipartisan, as a matter of fact, and which is amazing this close to an election. With the midterms right around the corner, it's amazing that they do that because neither side wants to give, which is just inane, wants to give credit to the other side. They don't want to let them be able to go out and campaign on saying, I passed this. But both sides stepped up to understand that we have a major affordability crisis in housing all over the country, and something needed to be done. As with a lot of things, there was a lot of red tape that didn't need to be there. And so they're cutting that red tape. Interestingly, one of the biggest things in that bill is the elimination of steel chassis for modular housing. So, in other words, trailers. There was this kind of nod that, all right, it has to be able to move like it's a trailer, even though you're going to move it into place and it's never going to move again. It's your home. So that was eliminated, and they're able to create more modular housing, pre-manufactured housing. And that's going to help out in a lot of different places for people that want a first-time home, or people in general that don't have a huge amount of money to spend, but would like something that they can own. And the other thing that's being bandied about is that investment purchase of rental properties that keeps people from going out and buying a home of their own. And yeah,
Some corporation buys up a bunch of rental homes. Yeah.
yeah, and they limited that, but geez, you can still own 350 houses. So it's, if they were really serious, it's a start. Okay, I'm not complaining. It's a start. And this was something that Trump had said, yes, we need this. And then on the day of the signing ceremony, he's like, I'm not going to sign this. I'm not going to sign this. So again, just whatever is his whim of the day, and however he is digesting the Big Macs, just rules the day. So it became law without him signing it.
And by the way, speaking of the Big Macs, and parenthetically, the health department has RFK. They've stopped tracking the virus, the bacteria that causes the explosive diarrhea. I forget the full technical name of it. And it is now, of course, they stopped tracking it. So it is now, of course, becoming a problem. And in my book, the words explosive and diarrhea should never be in the same sentence.
No, and I don't know if
it's not a good thing.
I don't know if you saw this. It's tied to lettuce and unwashed fruits, the same thing they tell you don't do when you go to Central America. Don't eat those things, is now a problem here. Taco Bell came out and they said that they were getting rid of some of those temporarily, like apparently the shredded lettuce. And my first thought is, it's Taco Bell. How can you tell what's causing that? Isn't everything on your menu? And that's a joke, folks. Nobody from Taco Bell. I don't want to hear from Taco Bell's lawyers. I'm kidding around. It's a joke.
It's a joke, folks. By the way, before we leave the administration, well, we're not going to leave the administration. Actually, we have a couple of other topics here. Pete Hegseth, who wrote a book back when he was at Fox, based on his extensive experience as a military officer, about all the things that are wrong. I think it was called The War on Warriors. All the things that are wrong with the military, including they're way too woke. He made allusions to, before long, the military is going to be run by black lesbians, or words to that effect. And he's doing his best to make sure, lesbian or not, that's not going to happen. He has eliminated from the promotions list a number of long-standing, long-time serving officers with spotless records, many of whom, a remarkable percentage of whom, are women and or black. Again, your thoughts on that?
Well, from what I am reading, it will be the first time in over a decade that there has been no female admiral in the United States Navy. So, yeah, he wants nothing but white men in charge. Before we went on the air, you were also talking about the beard regulation and how that was pointed at black men who have a problem with many men do with shaving. It causes razor bumps.
Yep.
And
it is a problem, particularly for black men, because the hair is very curly. If you shave too close, I did a little reading before we went on about the condition. It has a scientific name as well. But what it amounts to is if you shave too close, if you shave like with a multi-blade razor, they recommend using, number one, an old-fashioned safety razor if you're black and you have to shave. I don't know why an electric shaver would not be acceptable to Pete Hegseth. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I was telling my wife there's going to be big run on Remington shavers in the U.S. Navy among black sailors, but he's eliminated that. You can't have a beard. You can't do that. Sorry, everybody's got to be clean shaven. Well, with black skin, if you shave too close, if you shave beneath the skin, the hair tends to curl back in, and it basically goes back into the follicle and can create infection. You get razor bumps, and they can become a real problem. And I have a good friend who is a veteran and is black, and he commented, "Yeah, I'm sure this is not aimed at black servicemen at all, at all." The irony was dripping off his post. So, and of course, no promotions, no women, white or black, if possible, and minority officers are getting short shrift now.
It's racism. I mean, it's the entire thing, gender discrimination, racial discrimination. That is what he is about, and that's what he is turning the Pentagon into. It's like everything else involved with this administration, just despicable.
All righty, last comment. The internet. Let's talk about nature. We'll get to the International Criminal Court. We'll maybe have to do that next week. The president, two national monuments. One of them is Bears Ears. The other is.
They're both in Utah.
Yeah. Utah appears to be ground zero for this. They were declared over the years. I think President Obama expanded the size of the Bears Ears National Monument, and the president has now shrunk them. They include areas that are sacred to Native Americans. They include beautiful country, and it's now going to be ripe for exploitation, mining. I'm sure there must be some precious metals under there somewhere, and they're going to go after it. You add to that the fact that they have virtually gutted the Endangered Species Act. I don't get, and this is in addition to paying companies not to build windmills and solar panels and all that. I don't get this war on the environment, frankly.
Well, they don't care about the environment. This is the most short-term thinking group of idiots ever assembled. Mining, drilling, ranching, farming. That is what they open these things up to because they are getting kickbacks from those industries and sometimes those individuals in the form of campaign contributions and under-the-table payments. And money is the only thing that interests these people. How to enrich themselves and enrich their donors. That's it. And if it costs some endangered species, the last few examples that are still alive on the face of the planet, they don't care. They don't care about us going out and having a good experience in the wilderness. The interesting part to me, and I've talked about this before, is some of the staunchest conservationists in this country are very, very red ranchers and hunters living in those states like Utah and your old home of Wyoming and Montana. You get some really strong conservationists out there. So my hope is that somebody steps in. The orange dude had last time shrunk a couple of national monuments. Biden came in, re-expanded them, and now he's doing this again.
And it'll have to be done again.
Yeah, the endangered species part is not something you can come back in and re-legislate. Once those animals are gone, they're gone forever. I mean, it's the dodo and the passenger pigeon. So you're not getting them back.
One of the arguments about, for example, the Big Bend Wall, that at least it doesn't appear we're going to get the big 20-foot solid fence, because one of the arguments against that is migratory animals, herd animals that migrate would not be able to get to water. They couldn't get to the Rio Grande, for crying out loud. There are issues these people aren't considering. There are so many alternatives to guard the border, electronic and technological alternatives. This just gets absurd. But as you say,
It's money.
as
It's
they
all
said
money.
as they said in All the President's Men, follow the money.
Yeah. Somebody's
Um,
getting paid
Mike,
to build those roads. Somebody's getting paid to build those walls. It's all
sure.
money.
Sure. And that's in the Big Bend. That's a place where God gave us some pretty big walls already.
Yeah,
So
they're building.
we're okay on the wall front.
They're building vehicle barriers where vehicles cannot possibly go.
Yes.
So it's money. It's stealing money.
Michael, we're at the 40-minute mark. We need a weird historical fact, something lighthearted.
I wanted to talk about. I'm not sure how lighthearted this is, but I had selected this, and as a matter of fact, it has to do with animals. It has to do with national parks. I don't know if you've ever been to Chaco Canyon in New Mexico. To get there, you have to go down at least 15 miles of washboard gravel road at 20 miles an hour. It is fabulous. It is a Puebloan culture site that was a sacred site. It is oriented on the cardinal directions and the moon and the sun. It's fantastic, and there are these giant temples that are out there. The people that lived there from, if I remember right, around 900 to 1100 was the heyday of it. They had vibrant trade with Central America, and one of the things that fascinated them were scarlet macaws. So scarlet macaws live in the jungle, where it's relatively.
She's a fine actress, by the way. I'm
Yes,
a big
she
fan.
is. And so these birds, these parrots that they're bringing back, are coming up to super high altitude in New Mexico, where it gets really cold sometimes and below freezing. And the people that live there, the priests and chiefs and all of this in that Puebloan culture, were keeping them as pets, and they basically they weren't just keeping the ones they brought back. They had hatcheries, and there has been new scientific work that they built fires in these closed rooms in these temples to raise these scarlet macaws in New Mexico. And then, and this is the painful part, they would pluck the flight feathers, the long feathers, which had to, I think the
Yeah.
term is hurt like a son of a bitch, I think is the correct,
That's scientific, yeah. Huh?
yes, scientific term. And they use those to trade around. And the reason that we know this, the new scientific discoveries, is because the archaeologists have found a layer of bird poop inside these rooms. And it's more than what just a pet could create. And that is,
Yeah.
that is evidence that they were actually raising these birds as hatchlings. So the moral of the story is that even in bird shit, Roger, you can learn something.
Ba-dum-bum. Thank you very much. You've been a wonderful crowd. Mike, thank you. As always, appreciate it. By the way, everybody, like it. It'll be posted everywhere you can get a podcast, right?
Yes.
You name it.
I think there is
Yeah.
a drive-through podcast location near you that you can pull right up there.
Stop
Talk
in
to
and
the-
order.
Yeah, talk to the
order
clown
another
and
fine
get a
mess.
copy. Get a copy of Another Fine Mess.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank all of you. And we will see you next time for another fine mess.